You're listening to the Snob OS podcast, the podcast for Apple snobs. Hey, this is Nika Montford, aka Tech Savvy Diva.
Yo, this is Terrence Gaines, aka Brother Tech.
And welcome to the Snob OS Show, the show for Apple snobs, where we talk all things Apple and then some. Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode. Before we get into the topics at hand, I want to take a quick moment to shout out all of you for your continued support of our show. An extra special shout out to our Patreon supporters, who we lovingly called Snobbists. If you want to become a Patreon supporter that allows you to watch the show live and to get exclusive content, you can head on over to patreon.com/snoboscast to get all of those details. And with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into this week's show. We're going to kick it off with the Lowdown, where we talk all things Apple. Well, the day that we're recording, which is Wednesday, happened to be a very special day. A new Apple product was just announced today, the new iPhone 16e. The announcement didn't come with the typical fanfare of a live in-person event or even recorded quote-unquote hybrid event, but it was announced with just a 13-minute video from Tim Cook and some of the good old folks over at Apple. So, what is the new iPhone 16e? It is essentially the new SE version. So I suspect going forward, how we have the standard iPhone, we have the Pro and the Pro Max, I think the quote unquote E line is going to be in that mix as well. So what is the new iPhone 16e? It has a 16.1 inch OLED display that has the top notch, but it has Face ID. So no more home screen. Home button is gone. It has an A18 chip. It comes with a USB port, action button, Apple Intelligence. I think one of the things that's probably I've seen a lot of talk about is a new C1 chip, which is Apple's first wireless modem. This thing comes in black and white as well. So those are the overall kind of big picture things. But like I said, I think the biggest thing is the C1 chip. I think the second biggest thing is that there are no longer any active devices that have the home button. And this SE, surprisingly, but is it really? It includes Apple Intelligence. So
Sure.
basically all the iPhone 16 phones have Apple Intelligence, from the budget phone up to the Pro line. So did you watch the video, see the announcement?
I did not. I've been so busy, but I was checking Apple Notes and I saw that it was announced. I was like, oh, thank God I don't have to produce today's show, because I had to be scrambling to try to find out what happened. So since it's Nika's turn, I was like, oh, the iPhone 16 was announced. So, 16E was announced. So we'll talk about it later. So I'll just go do something else. But now that you mention it, I did actually go in and kind of check our predictions. Because like I mentioned at the beginning, like we mentioned at the beginning of the year, that we do these predictions. But during the year, as things happen, we really don't check back in, right? So I actually went in and checked to see if any of us had on our predictions that Apple was or was not going to announce an iPhone E or whatever the budget or
SE
small,
version,
right? The SE version, right? I was almost there. One of my predictions was Apple will not add the iPhone Air to the lineup, because I think the rumor was Apple was announcing this super slim, whatever the case may be, but I couldn't remember. So when they announced the iPhone 16e, I was like, oh, did I say that Apple was not going to announce an iPhone SE? I was like, let me go look. I was like, oh, no. That don't count. The iPhone Air don't count. That ain't the same thing. Right. So yeah, I did check that. And also I agree that the C1 chip is probably the most noteworthy thing out of the iPhone 16e. because, like you mentioned, this is the first time Apple has built or included their own modem in the phones. Before, I think they were using Qualcomm. And they had a big falling out about that. And Qualcomm was holding on tight, and Apple was trying to back away.
You go.
Apple was slowly trying to back away, and Qualcomm was, so they had not gonna call it maybe it was contentious, but all that to say, fast forward to now, Apple has finally started shipping their phones with their own chips. So I'm assuming they're going to use this as a test run to see how things work, because let's just keep it a buck, everybody ain't rushing out to buy a 16E, and Apple knows that, which is why they didn't do some event, which is why they didn't do some, anything really. They just did a press release, right? Because what they want. So the people who have been dying for an iPhone SE, whatever generation this is, they'll get it, but it's not like in mass, so that gives them some time to actually test this
out
chip for the fall.
Yeah.
Right. For the fall, when they announced the 17s, I think. Yep. Yeah.
17, yeah.
Yeah. The 17s. I guarantee you the chip are going to be there, but it's like, let's test it first. So let's put out this new phone just to test this new modem.
And I think it's going along the lines where Apple wants to own everything. We saw it with the Apple Silicon chip, where they moved away from Intel, and now the modem is like, goodbye Qualcomm. And I'm pretty sure they are losing their, because if this works and people are happy with it,
beginning of the end,
it's, it's done. So it's, for them. So I think that's pretty important. I think the other thing is, typically the SE phone is smaller than your typical iPhone. Now pretty much all the iPhones are approximately the same size, with the exception of the Plus and the Pro Max. So basically all the phones are starting with a 6.1 inch screen. A little bit on the camera details, because we all know with the SE, it just has the one camera on the back and the one on the front. So a little bit about the camera. The rear camera is a 48 megapixel single lens with HDR. It has portrait mode and night mode. It records in 4K video up to 60 frames per second. And it also includes spatial audio. The front camera itself has a 12 megapixel sensor. So you get a pretty decent camera for this. I think the other thing to point out is, with the release of the iPhone 16e, all the other SEs discontinued, and they are no longer for purchase through Apple directly. I'm sure there are some places who, maybe your Best Buy, maybe your places like your Micro Center, people selling old stuff. That's pretty much at this point the only way you're going to get the previous SE versions. You're not going to be able to get them directly from Apple. So a little bit of the details on the availability. Pre-orders start on the 21st. If you're listening live, that's on Friday. If you're listening on the recorded show, that's today. So make sure you go in and get that if you're interested. And of course, the pre-sale starts at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific. And then it'll be available for shipping and in stores that following Friday, which is the 28th. And the iPhone 16e starts at $599, and the base model storage, I think, is 128 gigabits. So
this is the perfect. Yeah, this is the perfect phone for my 14-year-old. She's turning 15 in June. So, and she has an iPhone 10R. So the old iPhone 10R, it kind of looks like this, but it's got the single lens in the back. It's got the it doesn't have the notch, and it still doesn't have the home button though. So this would be a perfect phone for my daughter, with the exception of, it doesn't have that ultra wide 0.5 zoom that the kids like to use.
Oh, that's what they into? I didn't know that.
So that's what I was about to say. You're not a parent. So let me bring you in. Let me bring you into the
Give me the parental
world.
Secrets.
These kids, I thought it was just my kids, especially my daughter, my middle child. She is the photog. She's the artsy one, right? She is always sneaking up on us and she wants to use my phone because she know my phone has all the 3 cameras and all the stuff, right? She wants to use my phone and like get really, really close to my head with the camera and use the 0.5 zoom because it looks ridiculous. But they think that is the most hilarious thing that you can take a picture of somebody's forehead, somebody's face.
That you're already up on them.
And then they do the 0.5 zoom. So it kind of widens out. So it looks ridiculous. But the kids are totally tickled by that.
Yes. These kids are strange.
Yes, they are. So all that to say, this may not be the phone that she gets simply because it doesn't have that goofy lens so she can take those goofy pictures. But other than that, this is.
But again, in 5 months, is she going to be into that?
We'll see. If she ain't, I'll be looking for an iPhone 16e for her 15th birthday.
Yeah. And again, pretty much like I say, with any time Apple drops a device, if you're in the market, this is something great to have. If you're looking for a budget phone, if you're not, then this isn't for you. And that's okay. Everything is not for everybody. And that's fine. You don't have to participate if you don't want to. Next up.
Real quick. Another thing it does have is an action button. It has an action button too.
Oh yeah. I missed that part. Action button. So it has all of the markings. Next up, Apple no longer offers any devices in the product red color. If you are aware, the product red line is essentially Apple's kind of give back version,
philanthropic,
for their devices. And it's where it gives, it has these devices in this, blood red, bright red color that is solely unique to product red. There haven't been any other colors in the Apple lineup similar to this, and it raises money for HIV/AIDS,
right?
And what was that? I think it's a couple other things, tuberculosis and malaria. So this is supposed to help the world at large, specifically on the continent of Africa. So typically, new stuff released, you get a product red version, but it seems as if the iPhone SE, the iPhone 14, and the iPhone 14 Plus, which are all discontinued, are the only devices that have the product red. So there are no 15 products that had the product red. There were no 16 products that had the product red. There was, as far as the Apple Watch, I don't think, we're on 9 now. I don't think 8 or 9 had a product red option. Now, this isn't to say that Apple won't ever bring it back, but it seems to be trending, kind of away from it, especially when the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 16 were the kind of phones that were supposed to kind of change the face of Apple, the new direction with, the Apple Intelligence and all that good stuff. So it's surprising that they didn't do a product red line for the latest.
Yeah, and I'm pretty bummed about
products.
that because I used to get my wife the product red iPhone, the Apple Watch, because her favorite color is red. Not that red that's in product red, but it's like a darker color.
Burgundy.
Yeah, like a champagne or not a champagne, a wine color.
Wine.
So this is as close as you're going to get. I would get her the product red watch. And I think I got her the product she has right now, the product red Apple Watch, but I can't remember if it's an 8 or a 9. I can't remember, but she does have it. So pretty bummed about that and they used to come out during Valentine's Day or around February, March.
'Cause red.
Right. So yeah, definitely bummed that they won't be offering those products anymore.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if it does come back or what, I guess, the thought process around it was. You can't blame it on the current administration because they haven't had one since before that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the global fund that is funded by the product red product. So it'll be interesting to see if we get anything else out of this, or if, they kind of like slowly phased it out and, we just didn't know. All right. So the last story for the lowdown, we don't normally like to talk rumors on this show because we've seen it bite us in the butt.
With the exception of this
several times. But I wanted to talk about this one because I wanted more than anything to get your thought on this, because I know this is a feature that you've been wanting forever. Kind of how I am with my Air Power Mat. This is how you are with the wireless reverse charging, which is essentially you can charge your watch or your AirPods by simply placing them on the back of your phone. So this feature, this reverse wireless, let me make sure it's wireless reverse charging, apparently it was supposed to come out back with the iPhone 14, but it never did quite make it out. They did give us kind of like wireless charging light with the implementation of MagSafe, which, I think I have it on my phone. You have like, you can pop the MagSafe charger on the back and, get you a quick charge. So that was kind of, I guess, like a break fix, lack of a better term for that.
And to add, you can charge your AirPods with your phone, but you have to have the cable. You got to plug it up.
It's not wireless. And the key thing with this is it being the wireless reverse charging. So apparently, based on this article from 9 to 5 Mac, it is currently being tested on the new iPhone 17 that we can expect to come out this fall. And it's one of those things where I think Apple has issues when it comes to power. Like I mentioned with the App Power Mat, with with the wireless charging for the iPhone, especially when there are other phones that currently have this wireless reverse charging. Samsung, I know for certain, has it. I'm sure it's a couple of others as well. And it's like, why? And they've had it for a minute now. And so the question is, why is Apple so kind of behind the gun on this particular feature? And it was reported, let me just make sure to say that it was, even though we're reading this from 9 to 5 Mac, it was reported from Instant Digital that they're the ones who are saying that it's being tested, a 7.5 watt reverse charging function. So I want to make sure we give the credit to, where this is coming from. But yeah, so how are you feeling? Do you feel like we're going to get it, or is this just another thing?
I don't know. I don't know. But again, what's so fascinating is that Samsung phones have been doing this for quite some time. And it's just a thing, it ain't nothing that's going to knock your socks off, and it's not the greatest thing on earth or whatever the case may be. But I could definitely see it as being useful. Case in point, when you go out, I give myself an example. Me and my wife went out this weekend for Valentine's Day. We went to a show. We ate some food. We checked into a hotel, right? What would be dope is, instead of me having to pack a desktop charger and bring in a bunch of cables and trying to make sure I got a cable for my watch and for my AirPods and for my phone, I could just bring my phone, put the phone face down on the desk at the nightstand in the hotel room, plug the phone up with the cable, and then use the back to put my phone and or my watch on. I just need to bring one cable, the potential to charge 2 to 3 different devices. Your phone is plugged up. Your AirPods you can't put your watch and your AirPods on the back of the phone at the same time. But I charge my AirPods at night. When I wake up in the morning, take the AirPods off, put my watch on the back of the phone, brush my teeth, put clothes on, get ready to go. By that time, all three of them are charged. I didn't have to carry a bunch of crap. I didn't have to carry a bunch of cables. So for that reason that I can think of alone, I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of other use cases, but for that reason alone, I would buy the 17 Pro if in fact they did come out this year, this fall. with this feature because I think it's so useful. And again, like I mentioned, I did say if Apple doesn't come up with any substantial changes to the iPhone, I wouldn't buy the 17. To me, this is pretty substantial. Now, again, it seems tiny. It seems like, it's a throwaway feature, but I don't want to have to worry about my stuff being charged. And if the battery is as good as if Apple says the iPhone battery is as good as it is, then I should be able to charge my AirPods and my Apple Watch, not up to 100%. Just if I'm like down at 10 or 2, I can get up to 20 or 30.
Get me a boost.
That's all I need. That's all I need.
Yeah. And it's so funny that, it's the simple things that people want. Again, we just want to make, things a little bit easier. Life just a little bit easier. One less thing, you have to carry or to think about. And it just becomes, kind of innate action, just pop your AirPods on the back of your phone. I know I'm usually a every other year device person, unless it's something that's just like, oh, wow, I have to have it. But some of the things that I've seen for the 17 Pro with the cameras and stuff, I'm just like, I'm not feeling it. I hope that they don't do some of the mock-ups that I've seen, but I'm just not feeling it. So it's one of those things where I don't know. And this whole concept of the iPhone 17 Air that's still floating around, and it just, like, even before we got the new SE lines, I said it didn't make sense to have a 17 Air, no, a 17E, a 17 Air, a 17 Standard, a 17 Plus, a 17 Pro, a 17 Pro Max. That makes zero sense. And the features that you would be losing to get just the thinness of the Air, it's not beneficial. Who needs a phone that freaking thin when these phones are already super thin enough? So I'm fine, with the current lineup. But again, this is just a rumor that's kind of out there floating. The same as with the rumors with the camera that, is thin and it goes all the way across. And then the thick, I saw the thick one. I'm like, that is stupid. All that wasted space you have, unless you have some other technology built in there. It looks stupid and it is stupid. Don't do it. But I digress. So we'll wrap up the lowdown there with the rumor of the wireless charging. And we'll go on into second string, where we talk all other tech. I wanted to bring this particular story up because we did talk about it last year when the Humane AI pen was announced. This was supposed to be the, revolutionary kind of pen you're just supposed to be able to stick on your shirt or the collar or clip onto you. And it was supposed to completely, reduce the need for your phone because it didn't have a display. Everything was done by voice activation. It even had the projector thing on your hand, and it was even created by two former Apple people. I think it was a project manager and a director of design, I believe. What I didn't know, particularly in reading this article, is that the two people that left who created the Humane AI pen, they got married. They were married and then they left Apple together. That part I didn't realize. But I say all that to say is just last April, this pen launched with their startup. I think they originally got $100 million in investments for this thing. And
it looks like this. Well, hold on. Let me read this part. The Bay Area startup, founded by ex-Apple employees, raised more than $230 million to create the device.
Yeah, I think the 230 was when they totally what they had, but I think they started like 100 million.
Okay.
In any event, they eventually got 200, some odd $1 million for this. And not even a year later, it's dead. It's gone to the big technology sky and technology heaven in the sky.
And HP got it for a deal because they only paid $116 million for it.
They only paid $116 million for it. So that's, sad enough. You hate to see anybody's, startup close. But my issue with this is This thing started at $600 to purchase. I think they eventually dropped it down to like 500.
Still too much.
Still too much, especially now you have this device. It will stop functioning and the customer support will end the end of this month, 12
and
p.m.
you only get a
Pacific time on the 28th.
And you only get a refund if you purchased it within the last 90 days. When
Correct.
This thing has been out for over a year, maybe over a year, because I think it came out Christmas in 2023. I think is when it came out. I think.
Oh, it did.
I had to check that. I know it's been a year.
It's. I thought it was April, but any event, it's been
April
barely a year or just under a year, a very short span. So the other thing is, you say, hey, well, okay, it'll stop functioning or whatever. But I have this device, and I paid $600 for it or $500 for it. So surely it'll still, function or do something. No, this this human AI pen will no longer connect to humane servers. The device won't be capable of calling, messaging, AI queries and responses, or cloud access. I think in the FAQ portion of it was like, will it still work? And I think the only thing it'll do is like something with a time. I think I have to go back and check the article, but something
that my watch does.
Right. And the fact that you won't be able to access your photos is another thing. So Humane is advising that all of the people who own this thing to transfer their important photos and data to an external device immediately. They don't even say by February 28th. They're saying, go ahead and do it now. Go ahead and do it now. And the other thing is, if you bought within the last 90 days at the $500 price, you can get your money back. But anybody other than that, it's like, nah. You get nothing. You have basically this brick that you can use maybe as a paperweight as such. The only, I would say, probably positive thing about this, outside of these two married people, they'll get their $116 million. So I mean, kind of hard to cry for that, even though I think the article from TechCrunch was originally saying that they were hoping to sell this thing to get like 700 something million to $1 billion for it. That's a big letdown, going from $1 billion to 100 million. That kind of sucks, but you still got a lot of money. But I will say, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's karma, because y'all try to overcharge y'all customers and then try to turn around and overcharge for the sale. And it was like, no, we're not having it. So again, that's karma, because y'all could have made this cheaper.
Yeah.
And made it like more advantageous at like $200 or $250.
Especially when they kind of went all about this. It was like they were so disillusioned with Apple and phones and the way they were going. So they were going to strike it on their own and make a superbly, product that is, you don't have to look at the screen so much. What they paid for this thing, what you would pay for this thing at the height of it, is what you would basically pay for an iPhone SE that we just talked about. And we saw all the things that you get with that. I think what this says is, it's easy to criticize things when you're in it, when you're in an ecosystem that's already built. And then you say, well, I can do these decisions or whatever. And then when you strike out and try and create it yourself, you realize how difficult and complex it is. And then you start to say, wait a minute, I thought I knew everything, but I didn't. And I will say the highlight probably of this is all the people that work for this startup. HP is going to acquire all of Humane's engineers and product managers, and they are going to form within HP this new group called HPIQ, and they describe it as a quote, AI innovation lab focused on building an intelligent ecosystem across HP's products and services for the future of work. So, all things considered, especially when we know what startup culture looks like and when a startup goes out of business, the founders still get $160 million.
Sure.
Their employees don't just automatically lose their job. they get to go into another company. Granted, it may not be what they want, but you can always say, hey, at least I won't be out of job until I can find something else that I more in line with what I want to do. But it's one of those things where I think they oversold themselves on what they could achieve, especially when all of the reviews start coming out. Because I remember when this came out and the Rabbit R1, I think they came out around the same time and they were both universally panned. I think the Rabbit R1 probably got the worst because I think Marcus Brownlee really just kind of ripped him to shreds, and then it just kind of spiraled out of that. But again, it's one thing, to have these ideas and to, have the guts and gumption to be able to go and, create something like this, because starting a startup is hard when you're building everything from scratch. But again, when you're raising the kind of money that a lot of these, we'll talk about specifically them, that they raised, they probably, it's a learning experience, could have been a little bit more advantageous, because I was wrong. I said it was $699 is what it originally started. So it was originally $700 and then it dropped to $500. So it dropped to $699 and $499. Sorry, I undersold them by $100. So it's $700 for this thing that you can't even use anymore.
Yep. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I suppose. Yeah. So they've got to try, and whatever happens, happens. But this is just an example of the AI arms race that we're currently in, where everybody's grasping at straws. Everybody's just throwing stuff against the wall,
trying to be first.
So that's the era that we're in right now, the AI arms race era, where everybody's trying to be the first on the ground floor, the first to market, whatever the case may be. And people are just trying stuff. And unfortunately, some of that stuff is going to fizzle out. And this is one of those examples.
For sure. So like I said, the founders, they don't walk away with nothing. They walk away with a nice chunk of change, and their employees walk out of this with, having employment. Yeah. Because we already know in this current climate, it's out here. It's rough. That's going to wrap it up for Second String. We're going to head on over into For the Culture. And again, as we are still in Black History Month, we have a Teching While Black for this week's episode. And it is going out to Clarence Skip is his nickname, Ellis. He was the first African-American to earn a PhD in computer science. He got this from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in 1969. So almost in the 70s. First time. Shocking. While studying, Ellis worked on hardware, software, and the development of the ELIAC 4 supercomputer. He had a long career in major companies like Bell Telephone Laboratories, IBM, Xerox, and more. At the Palo Alto Research Center, where he worked from 1976 to 1980, he spearheaded a group that invented Office Talk. It was the first office system to use icons and Ethernet to allow people to collaborate from a distance. Does that sound familiar? It should. Ellis was a real pioneer in the field of operational transformation, examining functionality in collaborative systems. And if I, said, does it sound familiar? It sounds a little bit like Google Docs, no? Which we use for our show, and so many people around the world use. So you have Clarence Skip Ellis to thank for creating these tools that we use, creating the technology behind the tools that we use today that allow us to collaborate with people in a different location. So shout out to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right, let's head on into the next topic for the culture. Actually, for the culture, I didn't want to originally talk about this particular story because it was a lot of meanness around it, and people just being jerks and just having a
Being
lack
people,
of compassion. Yeah.
people out here, peopling.
Yeah. The only reason I wanted to talk about it is because of something that happened. I think it was either early this week or the end of last week. So if you haven't heard, the Detroit rapper that goes by the name of Dank DeMoss, she's suing Lyft because she was denied a ride over her weight. So she ordered a Lyft to take her to, I think, her cousin's football party. And so as she was walking up to the vehicle to get into it, she said she heard the doors lock and the driver would not let her in the car because he said that, quote, "I'm sorry, I got no space. My car is small." And when he's doing all this rapper, she is almost 500 pounds. I think I read somewhere it's 489 pounds. And so this driver was driving a Mercedes sedan. And some people I saw was like, it was the size of a Corolla. I don't know of any Mercedes Benz that small.
Well, C-Class is their entry level sedan. And I don't know how that compares to a Corolla, probably a little bit bigger than a Corolla, but it is their Mercedes smallest sedan.
And it's their, let's be honest, C-Class, it's their budget friendly.
Sure. Entry
Mercedes
level.
Benz.
Yeah.
Entry level. Mercedes Benz. So the guy ended up saying, I'm going to cancel the ride. He's like, you're not going to be charged. And so it was a bit of back and forth. And the driver tells her, you need to order a bigger car. So all this kind of, going back and forth. Ultimately, he did leave. She wasn't charged, but she's filed suit in Wayne County, citing discrimination. I believe Lyft ended up firing the driver, and it's one of those things where, is it discrimination or is it not? It seems to be a little bit of a fine line of, was it actually discrimination or was just because all these drivers are independent contractors to Lyft and to Uber, and they do have the right of decline for a passenger to get in their car. But you can't.
I would say not only that, it's my car. And technically, I don't work for Lyft. So I can do what I want to do in my car. And that's the problem with Lyft and Uber. Lyft and Uber drivers are not Lyft and Uber employees. They are contractors. And all these drivers are doing is using the tool. The software. The app, to provide a service to people, a marketplace, if you will, right?
Yeah.
But me being an independent contractor, an Uber or Lyft driver, it is my car, it is my gas, it is my maintenance, it is my responsibility. So I'm going to look out for me, and I'm not going to pick up anybody who looks suspect, like if they trying to, get away from a crime, or I'm not going to pick up, you have, like you said, you have the right to not pick up somebody, for example, if they're doing a crime, if they're just looking sketchy. I'm driving my car, and if you look sketchy, I don't care what Uber and Lyft say, right? But that's not this case. But in this case, it's the same. I am not an employee Lyft. I'm an independent contractor. I run my own business. So therefore, I have the right to allow or deny anybody a ride. Again, Uber and Lyft need to decide whether or not these people are going to be employees, and you treat them like employees. If you treat them like employees, you can tell them what to do. And if you can tell them what to do, you can tell them you cannot deny anybody a ride based on age, sex, weight, whatever the case may be. They can't do that because they don't work for Uber. So this is how something like this happens. Because this dude, for whatever reason, saw her and said, I don't want her in my car. Now, you can make all of the cases in the world that, bruh, it's a Mercedes, relax. Your car is not going to break down if it has too much weight in it, or whatever the case may be. Or, bruh, you being insensitive because you try, according to the story, you tried to pull off, but then I don't know, something happened or whatever the case may be, talking about, oh, I ain't got enough room. yes, you could make that argument, but at the same time, it's like, bruh, it ain't like, you driving a tricycle and here
Yeah.
she comes getting a ride or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But again, you can't tell that dude what he can and can't do with his car. Now he's in trouble because of it, but at the same
Yeah.
time, this is my car, man. If I don't want to pick you up, I don't have to pick you up. In the story.
Right. So the suit that they filed it against both Lyft and the actual driver. And they say that he is violating Michigan's Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discriminatory practices based on religion, race, color, age, sex, height, weight, and familial status. So this is what they're using as the basis. Again, like you said, it's going to be, I think, a hard case to make. And I say it's going to be a hard case to make. And the reason why I wanted to bring up this article this week, even though this happened back in the middle of January, so maybe about a month ago, actually a month to the day because it's January, it's February 19th. I bring this up because she posted a video online and it showed her getting into a car.
Okay.
However, and she said that she was going to use this as evidence in her case.
That she can
now,
fit
to
in whatever the case may
me,
be.
if you're going to do this, you need to select the exact same car that you're going to be using. But what she's using said was a crossover vehicle. So it was like a small SUV. And she showed that she could get into it and that the driver pulled off. And then the next part of the video, she's driving a Range Rover. And I'm like, you're actually harming yourself by doing this. Because if you were really trying to prove a point and not to kind of get clout or whatever you want to call it, you would have selected the exact same vehicle and proved that you could get into that car and that he could drive off. The other thing I'll say is, on the driver's side, say you fit into the car. Great. Are you able to strap the seatbelt in? Because God forbid,
get into an accident.
As a driver, I have an accident or someone else hits me. I have a passenger who doesn't have their seatbelt on. My
and I'm on the hook for that.
Going to be like, I'm on the hook of it because I am an independent contractor of Lyft. And this is my personal vehicle with my personal insurance.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So, yeah.
As wrong as it is, because I definitely believe that dude was being petty and dude was like, overly concerned for no reason. But at the same time, that's his car, man. I can't tell a dude what to do with his car. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, they have this Elliott Larson law, but I'm pretty sure it applies to, I don't know. I'd have to do the research. My guess is that it applies to government employees. It applies to, a myriad of businesses, right? But a self-employed independent contractor, I don't know. Maybe it don't, because again, this is my car, right? Yeah. This Elliott Larson law, I'd have to look it up. So again, excuse me if I'm about to say talk outside of my neck without no sort of research. But like you mentioned, it may be a tough sell because all of the different things that go into this. And then going back to, like I mentioned before, the number one thing is he doesn't work for Uber and Lyft. And Uber and Lyft can totally say, oh, he's an independent contractor, man. That ain't got nothing to do with us. We just give him the tool in order to make money, right? And then in the reverse could happen. If something were to happen to his car, he can't go file a complaint with Lyft because, so it's like, all right, so it all works out for Lyft. But in the meantime, this is what happens when you're dealing with independent contractors. They don't work for Lyft, so they don't have to abide by they have more autonomy as in that when and how and where they pick up people. And this is what you're going to get. This is what's going to happen.
Absolument. So this will be interesting. This will probably set precedent if this person is successful. And I just have to say, last thing for me, I like comfort. And if I was of that size, I wouldn't want to be, inside a vehicle that I know is going to make me uncomfortable. I wouldn't want that for myself. But that's just, me personally. So, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
So while you was doing that, because I ain't crazy, I did a quick like
Quick Google search.
yeah, let me do a quick little Googles real quick, and I found a website called MI Senate Republicans,
Okay.
surprisingly, and they mention the Elliott Larson already in some of the examples of it's already in works.
Mm-hmm.
And the basically breakdown of the Elliott Larson law says Michigan has had anti-discrimination laws on the books dating back to 1885, yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
And the Civil Rights Act stated that all persons shall be entitled to the full and equal accommodations, advantages, facilities, and privileges of inns, restaurants, eating houses, barbershops, public conveyances on land and water, theaters, and all other places of public accommodation and amusement. That don't say nothing about private.
Yeah.
And my car is my private vehicle. If I was driving a bus, maybe. If I was driving a Uber car or a Lyft car, maybe. But this says public conveyances on land and water and public
So like
accommodation.
city buses, city ferries. Yeah.
Right. And employee or company owned vehicles.
Yeah.
Right. This ain't no company owned vehicle. This ain't no public transportation.
This is in my personal name.
This is my ride.
I have personal insurance.
Right. This is my ride.
Right. Right. So yeah, I think they may have overplayed their hand a little bit, but time will tell. Let's wrap up for the culture and head on into the hookup for our tech tip of the week.
All right. So this is not really a hookup. It's just like a notification. And it ain't really a hookup for Apple fans. Normally I do these hookups for Apple users, Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, whatever the case may be, right? But I wanted to do this hookup because this is an Apple product and I know people who have Androids, So I want to put this hookup to say that Apple TV Plus, the streaming service, not the set-top box, the actual service that you can sign up for is now available on Android devices. So if you have an Android and you want to sign up for Apple TV Plus so you can watch Severance, so you can watch shows, exclusive content, MLS season pass, that's exclusive to Apple, the popular movies, the shows, like I mentioned, Severance, Silo, Ted Lasso. We talk about that ad nauseum, all those shows that you want to watch that are exclusive to Apple TV Plus. If you have an Android, now you can sign up for them. And the cool thing about this is it works the same on Android that it does on Apple. And what I mean by that is Apple didn't dumb down their features. They didn't dumb down the user experience to put it on Android. If I'm on an iPhone and I'm enjoying Apple TV, I get the same experience if I'm watching Apple TV Plus on an Android. So I just want to put that out there. And if you're interested, if you have an Android device and you do want to take part, it's $9.99 a month for Apple TV Plus. For us, it's a little bit cheaper because I've bundled it into the Apple One thing. And you have to have an iPhone. You have to be using that on an Apple device. But if you just want the advantage of watching Apple TV Plus, that is a standalone service that you can now get on Android. So that's my hookup for the week.
Nice, because Apple TV Plus does have some dope shows.
Not a lot, but the ones they do have
are really good. All right, that is going to wrap up the show for this week. Brother Tech, where can the people find you?
Sure, you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATECH.
And you can find me at Tech Savvy Diva everywhere you get on the internet. All right, to connect, to comment, to share, to support our show, head on over to snoboscast.com to get all the details. And with that, we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.